Well, people are continuing to join, and Samir, welcome. So we have a worldwide audience here. For some folks, I know it's in the morning hours. Others, it's getting on into evening. So we are going to get moving. We're going to get moving now. We have a quick introduction of some of the speakers and some of the including myself. Niraj is the CEO and founder of Nexus. Nexuses is a demand generation and growth focused marketing organization. I know Niraj well. He's a pro. He's a trustworthy pro, and he and I have worked on a number of projects that have involved substantial growth in technology organizations, as well as other organizations, both in the United States, where I'm located, and throughout the Middle East, Europe, and other points around the globe. Pooja works with Niraj and is going to be assisting ensuring that this is successful of a webinar as we think it can be, and has done a great job to date so far. Thank you very much, Pooja. And Adam, who is a esteemed colleague that I've had the pleasure of working alongside and working and meeting with at conferences, several around the United States. I think Las Vegas was the last one, as well as wherever we were, Seattle, Portland, something like that. But Adam is going to bring a couple of decades of experience in operational excellence, creating that kind of framework of excellence, both in sales and marketing and demand generation. He's had, I know a little bit about Adam, so I'm going to brag on him. So he's done some fantastic work, both at organizations like Dish Network, Sling TV, Unifor, and really been able to kind of drive down costs and increase revenues by bringing the framework that he's going to be talking about. We're saving that towards the end because that one is kind of ties it all together. So myself, I'll be speaking. I've a couple of decades of experience in growing companies, including a couple of Silicon Valley organizations, both in AI, IoT. I've worked in telecommunications also, and I teach at a university here in the upper Midwest in the business college and focus on business growth and entrepreneurial success. With that said, I do have a little bit of an academic approach, but the majority of my what is almost 3 decades career is in business. So hopefully I won't bore you too much with some of the kind of academic stuff. But with that, we're gonna kick off. Niraj, Adam, did I miss anything, gentlemen?
Oh, sounds good to me.
Okay, all right. So let's bring up the slides. And again, I'm going to ask the audience here. We have several dozens now. If you have thoughts as we're moving through this, please just drop them into the chat, and we'll capture questions as we move along. We do want this to be interactive. We don't want it to be a bunch of talking heads just kind of coming at you on full blast. Fair enough? So if you have things you'd like to see, questions that you'd like to ask, we might not get to them right in the middle of the presentations, but we promise we will get to them either within the presentation or towards the end, or we will get back to you. So please do that. Okay. So welcome everybody who's come through in the past several minutes. We've just introduced the speakers, including myself and Adam Kuchera. Again, so a couple of decades of experience in growing AI, IoT, and SaaS companies, including an exit to the NASDAQ with a company called Allot Communications, a deep packet inspection company, as well as several Series C, Series D funded Silicon Valley companies. And Adam, again, operational expert, operational excellence expert, and going to talk about tying together some of the structures and processes that we're going to go through. And Niraj is going to provide details on some of that for demand generation and growth and inside sales. All right. So this is the basic agenda. You see it there, strategies used by top sales teams. I'm going to be speaking to some of that. Niraj is going to go into a lot of the details, as well as talking about some of the AI-powered stuff, scalable processes. Again, there's kind of a system approach that we have, and some actionable strategies, some takeaways. We're going to kind of lay out the landscape. We're going to point to the mountaintop and say, here's where we want to be. We're going to give you some direction, some paths to that mountaintop, and then we're going to give you some things to put in your pack. So as you walk along the path, you can go, oh yes, I remember this. These are things that are important. So kind of high level: landscape, mountaintop, path up the mountaintop, things to put in your pack to get to the top of the mountain. All right, next slide. All right, so fundamentally, what are some of the strategies and tactics that top performing teams use to drive inside sales? Now, I love this topic. It's been core to my career for several decades. So let's just jump right into it. And I'm going to give you a kind of a note on the next slide here. It really has to do with understanding customers and markets. That is a key part of what we're going to be talking about. So if we can get to the next slide, please. Okay, we're kind of, there it is. There it is. Well, we lost that next slide. There it is. Okay, so this is a quick look at, and I use technology markets here, but it could be any market. The way we define a market, it turns out, is especially important. You can't just let loose an inside sales team and say, go sell stuff at a market, right? It doesn't work, right? You have to, can we pull it back to the previous slide? All right. So here are a couple of examples of markets: government, financial services, education, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, financial services, etc. There's a whole bunch of them. There are also, you can look at a market by the titles, the experts in a particular market: engineers, developers, CTOs, examples, doctors, lawyers, system administrators, what have you. There's a note down the lower right, socio-technical. The reason I put that in there is that markets are mixtures of both people and the technologies in which they're experts in, right? So these are social and technical fields when you start thinking about a market. Next slide. Now, one of the things that inside sales teams do is they get very specific. And I know some of this is probably old news to those of you who are professionals in the space that you're in, but I really want to harp on this term. So I talked about a vertical market like manufacturing. So there you see it, manufacturing. And engineers, a title within a market. They're engineers. And I've broken it down further into automotive. So automotive, in that nexus, then if you pull out, there are very, very specific experts. If you could pull it back to the previous slide, that are very specific to a process and a whole marketplace. It involves plastic part pre-paint cleaning. Who knew, right? But that actually is a multi-billion-dollar market. And there's a client that I have that is an expert in that space. I'm going to refer to that client here and there. You see the little kind of teardrop down the lower left side is kind of the call out to that very, very specific market. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the pre-paint cleaning market, what is it made of? It's made of institutions. Institutions can include, the Institute of, in this case, CO2 spray-based pre-paint cleaning, academic institutions who write papers on that subject because there's a great deal of science that goes into it. It has to, market can include conferences, events, and the actual organizations, big players, small players, who are part of these institutions. The markets also include jargon. So in that space, the CO2 based space, there's something called spray snow. So spray snow in the upper Midwest in the United States is something different. That's something that happens in January when people are out with their snow blowers blowing snow off of roads and sidewalks. In the CO2 market, that jargon is important to understand because it refers to high velocity snow particles that are pushed through capillaries on a robotic arm attached to a FUMAC machine or FUMAC robotic process or WEG or ABB that cleans plastic of contaminants. So those are what we call mold release solvents that are the plastic parts are based on molds. There are solvents that are attached to those molds. The molds, the contaminants need to be cleaned off in order to add paint to that plastic piece so it adheres in a automotive market, right? So all of that jargon is important to understand about the market as an inside salesperson or team or organization that you're looking to address. Knowledge and certain kinds of expertise, I'm going to save that because we'll move on to that in another slide. Things I've already referred to, the actual spray arms, the CO2 material, the ecosystem of robotic arms, and you can start thinking then of a production line in which these plastic parts and this cleaning mechanism is all part of this thing environment for this market. And the processes. So I've referred to a kind of mechanical process that takes place, but I'm referred to a different market and why the understanding of the processes within a market are so important. In the education market, if you're selling to an education market at this point in the United States in September when school starts, you have already lost as an inside sales team because everybody buys in June. Educational organizations buy April, May, June, and then it ends. Right? So you need to understand processes, buying processes, the physical processes, etc., of your market, and especially people. Now, there's a note on the bottom, and this refers to inside sales understanding what's happening inside a market rather than just thinking they're coming at the market. Okay? So I'm going to point towards people, and we're going to move on to the next slide because there's a special class of people in a marketplace that you need to understand as an inside sales and a growth organization in order to kind of reach the success you're looking for, and that's professionals. Right? Why? Because professionals are the ones who create other professionals in the space. They're the ones who, in my case, I'll just say I have a doctorate. So part of my job is an academic is to vet other doctorates. So I sit on committees of people who are looking to achieve their doctorates, and I say yes, no, you need to do this, etc., blah blah blah. Same thing happens across industries. Lawyers, doctors, even inside sales. They're inside sales professionals, right? And we're offering ourselves as inside sales professionals. We're going to tell you, like, here's how you make yourself a professional in inside sales. You need to understand your market, right? It's not that it's pretty straightforward. Anyhow, so professionals do these other things too. They curate the institutions, they create the jargon, they determine what's expertise, they create things, they develop processes. This is not news, but I'll tell you why this is important here as we move into the next slide. How am I doing on time, guys? Okay. All right. Because the professionals in the marketplace are the people who know more about what is the truth in a marketplace. And if you as an inside salesperson can work with somebody who determines what is true and what is not true in a marketplace, you're in a very good position. There's different kinds of truth here. I don't want to get too far off the track in describing that, but I'll just give you some highlights. So technical truth. So if you understand, like, there are two types of technical truth. One is kind of mathematical. Put it this way: if you are a shipbuilder and you launch a ship and it sinks, your technical capability is probably in doubt, right? Because you need to be able to signal that you understand the mathematical concepts that create secure joints between the boards and a ship, for example, so that it sails. There's another type of expertise in a field. Think of sales, politicians. Yeah, sales, politicians, that's good enough. And even surgeons. Now, a surgeon's going to lose some of their patients, right? But that doesn't mean they're not a good surgeon. A salesperson will lose the majority of their deals. That doesn't mean they're not a good salesperson, right? So there's recognized expertise of a technical nature that is both mathematical and kind of, you can think of it as maybe political, right? There's epistemic or scientific knowledge, 2 + 2 = 4. The physics of CO2 spray cleaning is very detailed. You need to understand that. There's something called maneuver or metis, which is a Greek word for, you think of, you're in a chariot race. You have slow horses. You know the team next to you is very fast. You're coming up to a corner, and you know in a moment that if you cut off the other person, you're going to be able to make that corner and win the race. That's metis. That's the essence of metis. It's also a political skill. It's a skill used in football, as in soccer, as in, dribbling the ball up the field and then seeing an opponent, faking left but going right. That's metis. It's action taken to create a result. And there's forms of excellence that are created in marketplace based on that. If you're in a market, you know some of those things. Practical wisdom, again, bear with me here. These are kinds of knowledge that experts in their field and pros in their fields know. Practical wisdom is something like, you know that one of your suppliers is probably under some kind of financial duress, and you could take advantage of that. But you decide not to, both because it's a good thing to do, but also practically speaking, you know that when you're under financial duress at some point, they very well may say, we're not going to raise our prices for you. So that's a practical way of kind of thinking ethically about that. And excellence, or arete, again, I use the Greek, which is just the striving that we're all involved in here constantly. And that's a kind of knowledge that happens in the marketplace that gets both kind of locked down as well as always breaking free. It's yin and yang. I map it out with organizations, and we'll move past to the next slide here because I've spent enough time on that. But it's all important because that's what professionals do. They vet they have the power to vet what is inside a market based on whether it's true or whether it's not true, right? That's what you need to pay attention to, especially in technical markets. Their job is to stand at the border and say, your claim of a CO2 spray that is going to clean 99% of the contaminants out of a firefighter's uniform is unbelievable. I don't believe it, or I do believe it, in the case of our client. And so your inside sales, understanding what your market believes to be true or not across all those dimensions, turns out is the difference between successful inside sales in many cases and unsuccessful or not as successful inside sales. The successful inside sales teams don't just go at a market with value proposition, features, and benefits. They understand what is true in a marketplace. They understand whether or not, when's a good time to sell to the education market in the United States. Well, it turns out the truth is it's in April, May, June, right? Stuff like that. And the professional's default role, why do inside sales get so many no's? The professionals who are vetting your claims, their default kind of view is to say no to something until they vet it, because their professional reputation, their social capital is tied up in that activity. it is their role to say this is true or this is not true. All right. Let's move on to the next slide. They're gatekeepers. So again, you can go at a market with features and benefits, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, right? And a value proposition. Basic value proposition is, for companies seeking to avoid ABC and increase 1, 2, 3, our company uniquely does XYZ, unlike our competitors. And the benefit is 1, 2, 3. And the features we use are 4, 5, 6. Great stuff and very helpful. The difference is if you understand what is true about a marketplace and you're working with the professionals in the marketplace, that is where real success takes off, because you're able to begin to define what the market believes to be true, right? So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. All right, I'm going to give you one more example of how that can play out, and specifically using jargon. So there's a company that I've worked with, and they have a go-to-market for inside sales, which is unbrickable firmware updates. All right, so unbrickable firmware updates refers to system administrators pushing code to devices in order to update, for example, your smartphone. And there's a certain percentage the devices that always get bricked, as in they stop working, they become inoperable during the course of that firmware update, right? So the word unbrickable is an adjective describing a quality, which is no longer are devices going to turn into bricks. They're no longer going to be inoperable. We'll sell that as a service. So they sell that as a service. It's a simple phrase. It targets something that system administrators think is right on the border of truth and untruth. Basically, most system integrators or system administrators believe any firmware update involves devices getting bricks, and it's a problem. But if someone's selling something that says unbrickable firmware updates as a service, I have to pay attention, because my professional credibility as a system administrator is tied to that whole process. It's tied to those devices. It's tied to that jargon, brickable and unbrickable and bricks, right? All right, so we'll move on here in the interest of time. Again, the point is, and I'll just jump to the quote down below, to the extent that your inside sales team can control the present by knowing the truths in a market, they don't need to predict the future. I'm going to say that again. To the extent that your inside sales team can control the present, that is, control what is true in a market and control their alignment with it, they don't need to try to predict, right? Sales is always trying to predict, but this is about taking control of what you know. Participating is what is true in a market, and using that to align your company, your message, your inside sales team to the market from inside the market rather than coming at it, right? So you're aligning with that. There's a whole process that we go through. Niraj is going to take you through some of the structure that's involved there, but I'll leave you with this. Seek the truths in your market. Understand those truths. Shake them. Position at the border of what a professional believes to be true and untrue. Unbrickable firmware updates. I've given you that example. Long-range Bluetooth is another example. That's a company that I was a part of, as I led marketing for that organization, sales development. Did very well just by using that phrase. Shake those truths. You shake them. You go right up to the border of what professionals believe is true, and you give it a little shake. You disturb it enough that they have to pay attention. The unbrickable firmware update company they referred to, when they did a webinar on that topic, 1,500 system administrators showed up. 1,500 potential clients. Keep it short. Target the primal brain. For the CO2 company, by primal I mean humor, beauty, desire, and violence. those kind of basic go-to-market messages, they're tricky to do, but if you do them well, it makes all the difference. The CO2 company, one of the messages they have, they're based out of the upper Midwest in the United States, gets very cold. They say, we don't just endure the cold, we use it to clean. It's a little funny. It's a little funny. And there's a picture of a guy holding a really clean piece of material, and he's out in the frozen landscape. So target the primal brain. That'll get you the attention as an inside sales team that you're looking for. Use their jargon, unbrickable, spray snow. Support the pros. Instead of coming at the professionals, support them by giving them the information they need to maintain that border and grow that border, so you can be part of the border of what a market is and how a market is moving. So I'm going to point it now to Niraj, who's going to get very much more into the structure, right? And how does this play out point by point in a very detailed process.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. And again, if you have questions, please add those as we're moving along. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. So Brad has given like a structure based what you need to prepare, how you need to have that structure to implement the process. So now we are getting into a process, and best part of taking this process is we are going to, study a case study, how we help a generative AI to scale up. So if you go on the next slide, it starts purely with, maths system, like how many customers are you going to reach? What is your cost of reaching them? What are your targets? What would be your targeting as a cost per acquisition of a lead? And how you do that? So as a company, how you can get a customer? A, you reach out to your potential customer, right on LinkedIn, email, call them, cold call them. B, your customers refer to other customers, referral. C, you create a channel partner who get customers for you. Fourth point is that you do a paid PR, paid ads, let be in front of people and get them. Other than these four channels, there's no other channels that you can get customers, and how you get them is basically targeting those people. So what we did for this company, we started with 3 SDRs. We said that we'll have a manager, 3 SDRs, and we reach out to this much potential prospect with multiple LinkedIn different channels. And we put a target of this much meetings we generate. Out of this, we will try to close one deal, and the target of deal would be this. And we put a cost of whole process, what cost will come a month wise. Then we scale up. So what we learn from our first quarter, then we scale up for next month, then we scale up for third month. And that's how we put, in terms of closing more deals, we're able to, scale it up. So next slide, if we go. So the process is more like, up the slide rather than putting 10, 20 people at the top and just doing the outreach and scaling up, because that way we would not be utilizing the resources good and the cost per lead would be too high. So we started from bottoms up. We put 3 people, we identified the right set of audience, right set of customer, different pain points, different ICP, and we gradually scaled up the numbers of meeting targets and all, and the cost per meeting reduces drastically. So that's what the whole process is in outbound that we are going to come in next slide. Next slide. So as the pipeline builds up, the chances of getting those revenues. So deals takes large B2B deals takes average of 3 to 6 months to get close. So as we build up a pipeline, the revenue goes increasing. So sometimes team as an organization, you need to make at least 6 months or 8 months kind of a plan before running any lead gen in demand gen campaign, because it's a long-term goal. So that's how we created them, and we were able to achieve this. Next slide. What we created as a lead gen framework is list who's your target account, strategy where we have to reach out to them, data, finding their right phone numbers, emails, those kind of thing, planning how we are going to reach out to them. Content plays a very important role. Everyone is reaching out to potential prospect, or everyone is reading blogs, everyone is doing webinar, everyone is writing ebook. So are you able to add the value? And people don't have now that big timestamp. So in concise way, are you able to get the awareness stage? Then the matrix is again very important. Putting activities where you're not getting the ROI, not engagement, is waste of your time, effort, and team. So we were able to put all this structure and the technology where the AI automation plays in. So that's the whole structure funnel-wise we were able to put it. Next slide. And how we started with this, asking the questions, understanding what your customers ask rather than what we sell it. So we have seen the companies doing mistake, and when we go to companies, they said we already have everything set up. We need your support in terms of it. So it's not about just reaching out to customers, because you can run ads and all. It's about how you're reaching out, how you're addressing their pain point. So basically, a B2B buyer asks 3 questions: what is my problem? How do I fix my problem? And are you the right for me? So these are the questions they ask, and you need to provide content around that area within their journey. It could be start with email, it could be start with cold calling, it could start with event and those kind of things. But if you are able to address this all questions, your sales pipeline, your sales team jobs get much easier. Next slide. Again, lots of cold emails, lots of cold call, lots of ads, talks about their product too much rather than customer. No one customer searches and on a Google or want to hear about Google. They just want to get the awareness stage where they are at very high level. They just want to know how you solve their problem. So all the campaign assets at the high level where there's just the awareness, not conversation decision making, where your features, how your ROI, those things come in place. But at the top level, you need to just focus on what problem you're solving. And that has worked. For us, the 4-line cold call, 4-line emails have worked the best rather than a detailed description, detailed, one pager or something like that, without any content, without any assets. A small email just asking the question, how do you solve this problem? We have that. That has given us the most meetings. If you go next. One more mistake, what we have figured out with our clients is they try to replicate the channels what others are doing. Your customer might not search it only. They might not search your product. Their journey, no CFO, CXO, who's your customer buying, don't have time to search it. So you need to be where your customers are. Are they going an event? Are they networking? Are they searching for contents? Are they on email or they're on LinkedIn? So you need to optimize your channel rather than scattering your whole effort in multiple channels. Identify top 3 to 4 channels and start using that, and then scale up as they research about you. Next slide. So that's how we created initially. So what we do when we set up for any campaign, we identify where your customers are. Top 80% of your customers are at 2 to 3 topmost channel. We identify that channel, we create 2 set of funnels, with it marketing qualified and with it sales qualified. And we bring them to the journey. And how we do that? So usually what another mistake organization does, that they hire a sales team, an inside sales team, and they anticipate the leads and the deal closer. It doesn't work like that. There's multiple modules attached to that. The right set of data, tools, content, and pipeline management is involved. So that's what we try to provide, that with the set of a person who is managing the whole process. Next slide. How we did that? So these are the SDRs. If you see this, we'll be sharing this detailed slide. I'm not getting into the process, but there's a very process driven, because if an SDR put 100 contacts and start reaching out and cold calling, and then there's engagement involved. After call, they need to be value added things given, testimonials given. So there's a funnel on that. And that's what we set up at the base level for our clients. And that's how we scaled it up. So once SDR job is done, it's hand over to the different set of process, different department, and that the nurturing and everything the client come in, or they give to reference to other clients. So this is the process that inside sales team we were able to successfully implement and get those meetings and deals closer. Next slide. And it has to be a combination of both. One is traditional marketing. If I reach out to you, you would do your research. Modern buyers are not as a traditional buyer who just go via cold call, and this way they do their own research, due diligence. So you need to be present where they would research. It should not be your competitor while doing there is something new segment and they search it, and your competitors are better offering, they would route to them. So all social media, digital, LinkedIn, you need to have a content, but at the same time, you need to tap their toes. You don't need to wait for them to identify you. So if you combine these both channels, that start getting you, pipeline build up within 10 to 15 days. And that's what we implemented for them. So one is traditional marketing, means most of us are already doing that. Everyone is spending on it. Another one is account-based marketing, identifying your right set of audience. Who are there? If it is you're selling, like we are selling a revenue generator solution. So we reach out to CRO. CRO has recently joined our organization in 6 months. because they would want to change few things. And also based on that, we create ideal identified account, engage with them with different content, nurture and qualify. So next slide. And how to identify that, it is the base of it. So if you don't have the right set of data, either you're running ads, either you're running inbound campaign, SEO, anything, or outbound lead gen, anything, you need to understand who are your audience, and you need to create a persona, content, inbound flow based on that. And so we create this as a detailed research. We understand different audience, different buying persona. There would be a traditional buyer who goes via traditional route. There would be a modern buyer, a little younger, who go via more digital aspect of it. There would be a woman decision makers who aspect more diversity and those kind of things. So that way you need to create those custom which in line with their value proposition, their uh, requirements. So that's how the persona account segmentation plays an important role on this. So like if you're selling a solution which government cannot buy, you can't reach out to government bodies. And also initially you need to create this as a base of your whole strategy from database to campaign. Next slide. And once you identify those persona, you need to create such profiles, go in LinkedIn, study them, what they are talking about, whom they are connecting, what are they like, dislike. And based on that, your campaign starts, on that. Next slide. This is again a very detailed data process. So that's what it's not just, buying a list from Zoom Info. Everyone does that. So there's another 100 companies doing that same. So how you are differentiate? Another different companies selling cybersecurity, same pitch. So how you're different. So those segmentation is very important. Creating those personas are very important on the top of it, which is already available in market. So that's in place. And then putting the process. Next slide. So this is basically, yeah, next slide. Then also important plays a very important role in terms of a cold calling, email delivery, paid ads, how your content are distributed. Are your customers on mobile? Are you sending the emails? Are the CXO checking on most of your deck on mobile? It has to be done, not landscape. It has to be happen portrait. So understand the persona, and the delivery and everything was also important in that role. So based on that study, we take care of those data, study those data, and optimize your campaign. Next. This is again a LinkedIn campaign that it's a value-driven campaign process. So it's more of a process-driven. Next slide. Again, so if we are planning to reach out with a email or cold call, it doesn't need to be a pitch. So every time if we go and send them, we ask for their time for a meeting. No one has a time. Time is the most, costly commodity. So you need to give them value and then ask for that. So and it has to be multi-channel driven in terms of. So this is one of the things which works decently for the tech companies and all. If you are able to add the creativity, as of now, B2C is more creative in terms of B2B, but if you are able to add the creativity aspect of it, visualize, these are all the emails that we create for the client. So basically, if you are able to visualize that, because people glance through that, no one see a cold email and spend 10 minutes of that. So those things will help you in terms of getting the leads. The major thing is the follow-ups. So once you reach out three times, lead doesn't respond, you don't need to abandon those accounts. The follow-up is, we have got leads after, I think so, after 28 days, 38 days, and that deals closed in 6 months. So we need to be engaging with them. If you have identified this is your right customer, give them value. Don't be sales pushy. Give them value in different channel. Engage with them until unless they say do not reach out. And there has to be multiple touch point on that. So that's the process that we set it up. Yeah, value driven. So lots of people downloads the ebook. That's it, and they anticipate they will book a call with you. Once they download some set of a content or something, that you need to keep on engaging with them, provide them different use cases and all, because now they're in your pipeline. So that funnel need to be created. It's not just the content that need to be created. Post that, there need to be a journey mapped out, and which is very important. And technology plays a very important. Next slide. Similar way, lead management. Lots of our clients, we had leads, inbound leads, meeting done, that's it. They anticipate lead will come back to them. There's another multiple set of companies already reaching out, and your prospect is talking about. So how you keep them engaging is very important. And they are the CRM automations, personalized generative AI pitch, and those plays an important role. If a person is coming on your website again, tracking it, an automated email could go to them as a reminder. If they are opening your emails again, you have that automation that a trigger could be made out. And it plays a very important role. Our callers have been calling, if we had done the follow-up and someone are opening email, maybe they might be comparing the code with different vendor, but we get a trigger, our caller get in its CRM and is able to call them at that moment of the time and just engage with them. So that makes their decision making easy. So that lead management after generating leads is a very important role in terms of getting closer. And now comes the content. So you need to speak about the success you have done, implemented that to your client with different case study. So content need not to be, all these holidays, days and all. B2B content calendar, most of them it is there. All the events talking about us. We need to talk about how we have helped their customers, the case study, the problem we are solving, and those kind of things. That's how we design the content and we implement that. Next slide. Yeah, this is more like for lead management that we were working with Brad, how we used to take care. So it was not if a lead come, we give it. We identify a high value, high intent lead, and we make very personalized reach out to them. Even the salespeople were wanted to travel, have to have a face-to-face meeting. Then there's a low value, low intent lead who are not decision maker, who are decision influencer. The journey is different. But if you put whole bandwidth in the same process, it won't be effective. So we used to categorize the lead. Next. This is a good example of how the journey have it. So we identified 1,600 odd accounts who could be ideal prospects. In that 1,600 odd account, there were 9,600 contacts. Each organization has multiple level of decision making. And that's the journey where them. Out of those, this much engaged, 35 engaged, then 7% were warm, who has asked for different, then demo schedule, and this was demo completed. So out of those, 44 demos were completed. So this is the journey funnel out of it. So if you see meeting schedule done, then out of those 5 deals which were accepted. So it's not that anticipating that we'll reach out to 100 contacts and everyone would be buying. So these are more like a cold outreach. So the numbers at the top of the funnel need to be higher, as big as you're able to identify your prospect list. Reach out to them, introduce them your solution, and then within the 6 months, if you have the right set of funnel, you will have the right set of deal closed. Next slide. Then plays a very important roles of the KPI. So lots of our clients are dependent upon what is the email open, email clicks, those kind of thing, which is not the right set of KPIs. More right set of KPIs is how many people are engaging, how many people have seen your deck, how many people have come on a call, how many minutes they have talked on a call, what they have shared. Are you cold caller only talking, or the lead potential prospect is talking? So we are able to map those with all those AI tools, gongs, and those kind of put in place, and able to identify right set of accounts and target those set of major accounts in that. Next slide. What we also implemented, we figure out sending a personalized pitch would be very, we get better engagement opens and all based on their news, their new joining, their LinkedIn activity and all. So we set up a workflow in terms of with GPT and OpenAI, that you're able to create a Google Sheet, pull up all their LinkedIn profiles or Google News and reach out to them very personalized. You could either use that as a cold call, you could use it as a LinkedIn automation, or you could do it as email automation. But that has worked a good. So general pitch doesn't work out. Different industry has a different pain area. And if you provide this, your AI bot properly, we'll be sharing this template after the call in coming days for you guys to try it out. Now, personalized outreach at scale. So lots of companies does this mistake that they set it up and they have their sales team sending emails, sending LinkedIn invites and those kind of things. So what we did, we created multiple set of domains, multiple set of LinkedIn profiles and all, and we automated it. So someone is opening an email, we send the email, then a cold call task is created to the cold caller. And if someone is clicking on a link, seeing a deck, then automated a LinkedIn invite goes to them after 24 hours that, hey, Jack, this is this. I see that my colleague has these out, and everything is automated. And it's fairly simple with the AI bots and all, be able to do that. So your team is set, 1% team is able to reach out to 100 to 120 personalized contacts every day. So that's how we create the process. Now I'll ask Adam to come in, explain us how to, put the scalable process in place to build the team. Yeah.
Hey guys, so I'm going to jump in here. So great presentation, Niraj, to kind of create some structures that are associated with inside sales and moving things forward. Now, I want to kind of point it at Adam. Adam is going to describe some of the operational excellence pieces that maintain the structure and ensure that it stays, it's a little complicated, but ensures that it stays as excellent as it possibly can be. So here you go, Adam.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Thanks, Raj. Yeah, so I think, what you see here, right, the operational side, this is where I live and breathe. This is what I love, right? Because this is what I believe every successful company, every successful organization, especially revenue generating organization, needs to be built on a foundation of operational excellence, right? All the things that Niraj just went through, I love every one of those. I would want to dig in and ask questions and get into each one of those details, because if you understand that, then when you get to those results and the results are better or worse than you expected them to be, it's a lot easier to go back and understand that. So I'm a big believer in those operational excellence pieces. And I'm going to give you everybody kind of 3 things to be thinking about here as I go through the next few slides. The operational side, being very, dedicated to these elements, allows you to set up a very clear vision for where you want to go and what your team expects. It allows you to then be built for speed, right? To be able to react and to go forward and to be very, effective. And then it allows you to also be very adaptive to the ups and the downs that are going to happen, whether those are internal ups and downs or ups and downs of the economy or the industry or whatever that you're in. So clear vision, built for speed, and adaptable. So in the next slide, what you'll see here is kind of what I believe are the core principles of operational excellence. We're not going to go through all the ones, the smaller words, but we are going to focus on kind of those 4 kind of buckets. And the first 2 I want to talk about are process excellence. And Niraj just nailed a whole bunch of examples of really key process excellence, as well as collecting those data, those data points, so that you can maximize your analytical capabilities and be very data driven in how you approach things and how you react. So specifically, when you have a process on the next slide, those excellent processes, if you've put those in place, you understand exactly what you're going to do behind the scenes, whether it's collecting the data, or when you're going to put your team to task and say, start engaging with those leads, start doing those tasks, start having those demo calls, etc. If you have those processes in place, then you can have repeatable success, right? And you know why you had that success. You didn't just stumble upon it, right? You actually can have repeatable success, and you understand that. And then what's on screen now, hold on, go back, the quantitative decision making, right? You know what went through. You saw that flow that Niraj went through, right, a couple minutes ago, knowing exactly what started into your funnel. Where did they go? Where did they fall out? How did they get past that? How did I get to the very end and I close those deals? If you know each of those points, then you can analyze each of those elements and understand how to make them better the next time and better the next time, and continually improve, because you're using those that data to make your decisions as you go forward, right? Now, back to kind of those core principles. The next 2 most critical, this kind of goes a lot to what Brad talked about at the beginning, right? Being an expert. Your team is an expert. They know exactly who they're talking to and what is critical to them, right? So you're optimizing your team, and you have a strategy that is very clear. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And I'm going to hold you accountable. Right. So in Brad's example of understanding those, an industry, if you don't understand that industry, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to listen to those calls. I'm going to find out, did you do that research? Did you understand those elements? And I'm going to hold you accountable. A great example for me is you know, we've all of us have been on pipeline calls, right? Understanding exactly, hey, where are we with the pipeline? If there are not specific next steps, not just, well, I'm going to call them next week, or I expect to hear back next week. No, not good enough. There needs to be, I have a call scheduled next Wednesday with this group. Now that call might get moved, right? That can happen, but I have a defined check-in point that is on my calendar. It is on my prospect's calendar. That is a specific, and I can hold you accountable to that. And I think that's very critical. What you'll see on the next slide, again, it kind of goes to that accountability, right? And I have an image here of, right, people rowing. If we're all in this together, think about your team. If everybody is rowing in the same direction, we can win, right? We are going to just power by everybody else, and we are going to have a really easy time. And it's actually a little easier for everybody if we're all rowing in the same direction. But you have one person who's not rowing, right? Or they're rowing at their own pace, or they're kind of doing their own thing, or maybe worst case scenario, they're rowing in the opposite direction. It's going to impact everybody. And if you understand that and you hold people accountable, you can make those course corrections and you can get everybody rowing in the same direction. And then refinement of skills. Again, going back to what Brad talked about, helping people get very, very good at their job and very good at what they do. And you have a defined process. You hold people accountable to that process. You collect data to validate that the process is working and should be working, right? And everybody is on that same page, then that team can be there. There's nothing that can hold them back. And I think those are the elements. And again, I'm going back to that clear vision, right? You're building the team and the processes for speed, and you're able to adapt and adjust as necessary. Brad, did I hit on the points that you wanted to hit on to kind of wrap things up?
Yeah, that's great. So if we move to the next slide, great job, Adam. So remember at the beginning of this session, I promised you we would take you through a landscape. I described a lot of landscapes that we would kind of point to the mountaintop. Adam is just pointing to the mountaintop right now. That we would describe a direction or a path to the mountaintop. Niraj laid that out in exquisite detail, and that we would leave you with some takeaways, right? So hopefully there's some takeaways that you can pack as you go along that path to the mountaintop that, you know, come from what we talked about here. We'll also be following up with some emails and some information. There'll be additional details in there. For those of you who are looking for a little bit more of a deep dive, they have a conversation about this. There it is. Go ahead, book a consultation. We're happy to chat. We're not going to try to sell you, you know, too much, but we will try to provide some expertise based on what we've provided. And we'd be happy, of course, to do business with you. So I think there's maybe a time for a question or two. There is one question about improving cold call techniques. And if you have questions, please drop them into the chat. There's a question about improving cold call techniques and obtaining more meetings with potential prospects. Well, so I'm going to offer something based on, you know, the focus that I had, which is finding out what's true in a marketplace. And I'm using the example of financial services. So financial services and loans. So loan is a loan across many organizations. I mean, there's, let's say a personal loan from a bank, right? But the banks differentiate themselves in the US in particular based on a lot of things. You can get a loan from an organization like AARP, which is based on those people who are retiring. You can get a loan that's focused on from a company that's focused on veterans. You can get a loan that's based on people who are Lutheran Christians groups, right? So those companies, the truth is, they're not just selling loans, they're selling an identity. They're selling in the capacity to be part of a community. So if you understand that and you call someone, I'm going to suggest in a cold call and say, hey, the reason for the call is, and I'm selling, let's say, something that improves customer service, the reason for the call is I understand that customer service is especially important to your organization because that's how you facilitate a community in which people ask for loans. And I'd like to share with you then, is that true? Is that not true? Or you can do it as an either or. That's what some people say is important. Other people say it's just an issue of, customer service in these organizations being faster, better, costing less. And I have that product. But I understand that identity of your customers is especially important and facilitating a service environment. I don't know. What do you think? I've got this product and I'd be happy to talk to you. So you do it kind of as an either or in a cold call technique in which you offer something that you believe to be, or you've done the research that says this is true in this marketplace. And then you also offer something that is the kind of value proposition, features and benefits about your product. And what I've seen is that kind of approach, that works, right? If you just come at somebody with a value proposition, and Niraj has talked about this, we've all talked about it. It's like those customers, those potential markets have heard that a million times. But if you signal that you understand what's true in the marketplace, in this case, identity is really important to loans and the organizations that give them, is that you're going to have a higher engagement rate. All right. Anyhow, so there's that question. Go ahead, Niraj.
Yeah, just to add to that, so our team also do lots of cold calling. So what we have identified when you ask them, how is your day going? How was your weekend? That set the base right. So we have seen more successful engagement rather than, hey, this is needles from XYZ, we do this. Start with a warm thing. And then we usually tell the reason for calling me is that I emailed you. The reason for calling me is that, we met at this event. That is a good to initiate. So those data are good in terms of having a cold call. Then what we try to sometimes initially sell a solution that doesn't work out. We usually just ask for their time because cold call is a different, a sales team is a different. So when we just ask for a day time, like 15 minutes to get on a call, share the Zoom or get in detail, because on a calling, you can't give a whole picture of the solution. Then what we have identified, a call where customers are talking, at least 40% of the time. There's a tool like Gong, which give you analytics, how much time customer talk. That cold call result in better in terms of a deal size or a meeting or a further to the pipeline. And the last thing is in terms of, call duration. So if the call is very short or something, that usually we don't get a reply. But if the call goes a little higher and let's say more than a minute or something, we usually get the reply back on emails and those kind of things. So these are the few cold calling tips that has helped us as an organization and our cold caller. Just to add to that, yeah.
Okay, thanks so much. So we're right at time. And I know that the folks here are willing to stay and answer more questions and engage. We've tried to kind of boil the ocean, right? So we've taken on some very big topics. Inside sales, kind of driving success there, driving kind of customer and market understanding engagement, driving operational excellence, and kind of put them all in one bucket. I mean, that's a lot to provide in an hour. So my ask for you is if you have questions, ask, right? Connect with us. Let us know. We're passionate about these topics, and we want to share our expertise because we're professionals in this space. And, we want to demonstrate that we know what needs to be inside and outside. And we want feedback from you about what you saw here today and in your problems, what we could potentially help you solve. So, I mean, that's all I've got, unless there are more questions. And feel free to drop them in the chat. So we'll hang out here for a few minutes. But as for me, you guys have been a great webinar audience. Really appreciate the questions, the engagement, and the willingness to kind of sit through these presentations. But again, we'll hang out and we'll watch if you have questions. But otherwise, I'm going to say all the best and look forward to working with those of you who reach out.
Sure. I believe there is no further questions.
Okay. All right,
So-
well, let the silence ride. Do you have anything, Niraj?
No, I'd say that we will share Adam's and Brad's LinkedIn with all the attendees over the email. Feel free to connect, keep them, they share some great content on LinkedIn insights. So it would be great to connect with them, engage with them. And they do lots of event talks and all. So you might meet at some of the event with them. Yeah.
Yeah, could be.
And
All right.
Brad, Niraj, thank you guys
Yeah.
for letting me participate today. I really appreciate it. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and thanks so much for bringing your expertise. I appreciate it. I really respect what you do, as you know. And so we'll talk to you soon. All right.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.